They want you to hate the other side. You know why they want to split us? They want you to fight left and right. They want you to look left and right. They don't want you to look up. Look up. Okay, you can fight on that, but don't forget, you're not supposed to hate the other side. They want you to hate the other side. Stop hating the other side. Fight on the issues you don't agree on. And then on the things you do agree on, stop listening to establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats that divide you so that you never realize, hey, why are most of the tax cuts going to the rich? Why are corporations getting every break? Why is it that in every bill, all the subsidies go to oil companies, banks, etc.?
Well, that's largely due to the fact.
So why don't we unite on the things we agree on first? But if I want one thing for you guys all to think about is, you must vote in your primaries, because the mainstream media doesn't want you voting in the primaries, because that's where you can make real change. So that's why they love it when you go, oh, well, if you don't vote for a Democrat, Trump's going to be in office and Trump's the boogeyman, and the Republicans will say likewise, right? So go vote in your primaries so you don't have to worry about Democrats or Republicans. You're still in the same party. But get rid of the bums who are for corporate donors, who always serve donors, and get people that you love on both economic issues and social issues. You don't have to give up one, but you have to insist on them representing you and not the donor class.
What we learned from this COVID crisis, we will be applying to the climate crisis.
I don't know. I don't know which way I want to go with all that. Okay. I really don't. Joe Rossinello and Joe Pasillo at the front line with Joe and Joe. Once more, let us go into the breach Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Let's go in order. Let's do a little, then we'll get into the meat of the show. We're going to be talking about redistricting. That Fako tough guy thinks he's a tough guy. The Beto O'Rourke. We got to talk about that whole nonsense with redistricting, and J.D. Vance has something to say about that. Trump's got some ideas about Gaza. We'll talk about that. Matt Gaetz has some ideas about the Jewish lobby, the Israeli lobby. We're going to be getting into that. Then we got to talk about D.C. and what's going on with sending in the National Guard. We're going to get into all that, okay? And I don't know if we're either going to laugh a lot tonight or get angry a lot tonight. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be a combination of the two. Let's start with this first 3 clips that you and your sick, demented mind found out there. First of all, the first clip.
Dude, it's insane. That's Canada.
I'm going to make a quick comment, and I'm going to throw it right over. I've said on the show a million times, okay? Now, those look like uniformed officers of some kind.
They're the police.
All right, they're the police, okay? And how many times have I said, if I'm being attacked, if my life's in danger, if somebody's breaking into my house, I want McCluskey. I want the guy who broke Michael Corleone's jaw to be coming up with his gun or his fist or his baton to protect me. That, to me, no matter what he did to Michael Corleone, that's a real cop, okay? Not those people on the stage. What say you, please?
Dude, it's Bollywood. It's Bollywood. The police in Canada have turned into Bollywood. That was insane. I saw that. I was just like, what is going on? That's Canada.
And what does it serve, Joe?
I think it's clearly a propaganda stunt to show that they're like integrated, that they're not biased, that, you know, the white Canadian Mountie is for the Pakistani/Indian migrant into Canada. We don't discriminate, and we know how to dance to a Bollywood jingle. But to your point, the police are the police. And that was insane. It was like a vaudeville stunt. I would have thought that was something out of Saturday Night Live.
I never met a cop that did anything like that in my life.
And I've
said a million times, in my life, I have not had the greatest relationship, full disclosure, I have not had the greatest relationship with the police, okay? But at the end of the day, all right, I don't want the cops looking anything or acting anything like that. Let's fast forward for a second to Justin Trudeau. Let's just put him not brush him aside, but just take him at his word. Take him at his word. What they did with COVID, instilling fear, as you've rightfully pointed out on the show, the greatest transfer of wealth in human history, all the fear, the vaccines, everything else, okay? They're not stopping. They're already doing it. They've been doing it for decades. They're not stopping with the fear mongering when it comes to climate change. And Justin Trudeau is giving you the blueprint there. He's speaking for the oligarchs. What do you think?
He even had like a slip of the tongue. When he first said it, he's like, what we did with COVID, we're going to do with climate. Right. It's the same thing. and we're going to talk a little bit. Do we have the Carney clip? He goes into that recently.
We're gonna get into that in a second. So we'll keep Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, but the whole point is
side.
like how governments operate. We saw this with 9/11. 9/11, the result of 9/11 was the Patriot Act, which basically allowed the government to access your information. The government can access your information in America without a warrant because of 9/11. I'm not saying that the government caused 9/11, but what I am saying is they take advantage of a crisis because people panic and unite. So you leverage that. You know, this is what people don't understand. Politicians understand the demographic better than you do. They also understand, like a marketer. And I'm a little familiar with marketing ever since I've gotten into the social media game, how people market and tag and basically, label, thumbnail, clips. It's to get attention. They understand what makes you move, what makes you beat, what makes you tick. That's how the government works. That's what they did with George Floyd. That's what they did with COVID. That's what they did with 9/11. And that is exactly what he's talking about. He's telling you the game plan. We use the crisis to move our agenda as a result of COVID, and we're going to do the same thing with the quote-unquote climate crisis.
Right, and that's exactly what they do. They know at what point to employ certain tools that they have in their toolbox. Most of the time, it's getting people not to use their reason, to just follow their animal passions, sexual liberation, all that stuff. That leads to a reckless way of living your life that drives people into debt because then they're impulse buyers. I won't go off on a rant on that. They know that they always have that, but then when that wanes a little bit, then they come in with the fear. So to your point about 9/11, we have to fear what's going on in Iraq. In the meantime, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. Okay, but they sold it to us. I believed it. I had
no. So did I actually?
Oh, by the way, and Colin Powell, you're complicit in that too. You can't all of a sudden say that you weren't involved in that. You went up in front of the UN and you pointed out the weapons of mass destruction and where they were being hidden, just like Adlai Stevenson did during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So you are complicit too. It's not George Bush and Rumsfeld and the rest. You're in there too, Colin Powell. Okay, I believed it because Colin Powell said it, even though I didn't necessarily think it was George Bush. I didn't disbelieve George Bush, but Colin Powell gave him, I think, some credibility. I believed Colin Powell. They instilled fear in us with we go to war in Iraq. We go to war in Afghanistan. We don't get out of Afghanistan in any sort of honorable way, thanks to Pinhead Biden. All right. It's all about fear. They instilled fear with COVID. They instilled fear with climate change. It's fear, 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 fear. One real quick point before we get to Mark Carney. Let's dispel this idea that Cenk Uygur is now some sort of an open-minded, loving person who just loves to hear what the other side has to say. Him, and even though Anna Kasparian went on with Tucker Carlson, I watched the whole interview. She's trying to make it seem like she values debate. I am not convinced, especially when it comes to Cenk Uygur. He is a vicious, vicious leftist. When he talks about donors, Ben Shapiro pointed out to him, what, donors like you have? Donors like you had. The Young Turks doesn't exist. According to Ben Shapiro, the Young Turks doesn't exist without a wealthy donor, liberal left donor, coming in and giving him millions of dollars. So if the corporations can't take money, you can't either. If you're opposed to corporate donors, you don't get any money either. All right? So stop with that, number one. Number two, he's been the most vicious, hate-filled bomb thrower there is. And then he's trying to tell this young African-American kid in that clip, trying to tell him, they just want you to hate each other. Cenk, you hated me before I even knew who you were. Anna Kasparian hated me before she even knew who I was. And by the way, Joe, she hates our wives too, because she criticized all the women that would vote for Donald Trump back in 2016. I'm not buying their nonsense. They're losing their audience, and that's why they're trying to sound more middle of the road.
Well, I was going to say, it's very trendy, right? Listen, I'm not going to judge his intent. Clearly, we don't agree on some things. The message was solid that he gave. It was solid. What I will say, and what people should be aware of, and you look at people like Gavin Newsom, you look at people like Bill Maher, these are smart people. They understand how to market their product, and their product is their show. So, and their voice and their message and their podcast, or whatever you want to call it. So ultimately, the country has moved in a direction where they're fed up. You see this on CNN. CNN completely has changed its tune. They have one stat guy that all he does is throw red meat to the MAGA people. That's his job. It's never anything but red meat. He's there for a reason. People have to understand how these propaganda machines operate, because again, they understand you. That's how these people make money. So again, good message. Be leery of who you give your loyalties to. My loyalty is to the truth. My loyalty is to messages. That was a good message.
No, okay. I will grant you that what he said had some value. Okay. I just think he's a hypocrite because he's been one of the biggest leftist, hate-filled bomb throwers that there have been, whether it be attacking people who are against gay marriage, whether it be attacking Christians. In other words, all of Anna Kasparian, the same thing, like I said. Anyway, let's move on. You're with the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We're going to go way in the breach tonight. So here, let's go to Canada and I'm going to get my barf bag real quick, Joe, because we're going to play a clip from Mark Carney. So everybody just hang on tight.
In an increasingly dangerous and divided world, the international order, built after the Second World War and reshaped following the Cold War, is under pressure. Russia is emboldened. China is more assertive. The long-held view that Canada's geographic location will protect us is becoming archaic. Our Arctic waters are increasingly open, and there have been rapid advances in cyber, artificial intelligence, quantum, and advanced missile capabilities. Climate change is making our country more vulnerable. The Arctic's melting. Our wildfires and floods are more frequent and devastating. And these are all threats to which the Canadian Armed Forces responds. The Canadian Forces keep our people and communities safe through major disasters. I'll give examples. This summer, Canadian Forces have helped communities in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, soon Newfoundland and Labrador, including already by safely evacuating over 6,000 Canadians.
Let's keep it there because he said the meat of what we need to talk about. The order that was established after World War II and the order that was established after during the Cold War, he says is under increasing pressure. Right, Mr. Carney. Exactly, Mr. Carney. What part of it don't you get, or do you get, but you can't say it? We don't want your order. You've been trying, because it's not complete. See, E. Michael Jones makes this point all the time. E. Michael Jones makes the point that he calls it the second period from the end of the Civil War, the American Civil War, to the end of World War II. Okay, and now we're at the end of what he calls the third period. There's a name for it. I forgot what it was, and I apologize for that. But basically, he's saying it's all coming to an end.
Disgraziad, is that the name of it?
Yeah, Disgraziad would be a good one. But everything that the CIA tried to do, everything that the New World Order tried to do after World War II, established what eventually became the European Union, and all the foreign wars, the endless wars, the Cold War. All of it, okay? That's right. It's coming under increasing pressure, Mr. Carney, because we don't want it anymore. We don't want your New World Order. Trump and his tariffs play into that a lot, okay? Because the tariffs levied against us and not on other nations, okay, is one of the ways where they extracted our wealth from us. That's one of the ways the American government takes more of our taxes, because they weren't taking it in tariffs. That's just an aside. But that's right, Mr. Carney. We don't want your New World Order. Your New World Order. More importantly, we are aggressively fighting against it. What say you, Joe?
Well, I absolutely agree with you. All of those things, new alliances are being formed, old alliances are being fractured. He's telling you the truth there. What he's also doing is trying to scare you. And by scaring you, he wants you to continue to support parties like Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. And sadly, Canada went down that road. They used the quote unquote Trump threat. Doug Ford still talks about it. In fact, there was all over X this week. Doug Ford is still using that club to base, and the media is eating it up to basically talk you out of ideologies that benefit you, because none of those things benefit you. None of them. Zero. Right. They're importing a population that's going to vote for them. That's all part of the agenda. We saw that in Europe. And the climate crisis is nothing more than a scare tactic to keep you basically in your seat and keep the agenda moving forward, which has nothing to do with your interest. That's what that message was all about.
Well, what's the title of this show? What's the title of the Frontline with Joe and Joe tonight? All right. Is it about safety or is it about control? We know after all this time, and again, one more for the millionth time, this is why everybody out there listening to us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, that's why they hate Elon Musk. That's why they hate the fact that X, and by the way, subsequently, Mark Zuckerberg came along. YouTube eased up some of its restrictions. Rumble is growing dramatically. That's why they can't stand social media, Mr. Carney. The pressure is coming from people like us and many, many, many other people, great voices out there who are telling you we don't want your new world order. You've rammed it down our throats now since before Joe and I were born. I'm going to be 58. Joe's what, 52, 53. So for the last half a century, you've rammed it down our throats, and we quite frankly don't want it. I have a 16-year-old son. He's not dying in your effing war. He's not dying in your effing war. The conservatives and the real America firsters are now going to become like the left was during the Vietnam War. We're burning our draft cards. You're not coming for my son. He's not going to kill for this government and for the New World Order, and he's certainly not going to die for the New World Order. I'm not you're going to have to put a bullet in my head first before you take my son out to fight one of your BS wars. That's what people like Carney don't understand. We're not fighting your wars anymore. We're not believing all your lies anymore because the mainstream media has lost credibility. Joe, am I wrong? Has the mainstream media lost credibility?
Absolutely. And to be truthful with you, a lot of the lies, there's huge holes blown in them. We're going to be talking about some of that tonight when it comes to Gaza and Israel. 20 years ago, that was no one had those conversations. You couldn't have those conversations. Many, many, many conversations as a result of social media, which they tried to basically call it misinformation, whatever else that they try to label it and deflect and distract from basically voices that for a long time have been banging on those drums. But of course, they got no airtime. You can't hear from basically a professor in economics on certain, say, issues with the Fed. You'd have to basically dig through archives. You'd have to go to the library. You'd have to go and dig. Now
you'd have to go get microfiche.
Well, that's right. Now, frankly, these are voices, that's the benefit of social media. Granted, there's a lot of crap on social media, but at the same time, there's a lot of expert voices on topics you're not going to get from Wolf Blitzer, from people like on Fox. Turn that garbage off. These are the voices that we should be listening to. Experts, college professors, select ones, but Joe, ones.
How about just people who have balls to ask questions?
Well, there's that too.
Listen. I'm going to say it like this. I think you and I know a lot. Okay, we at least know a little bit about a lot of things, and then we know a lot about a lot of things, particularly the Catholic.
But we also do a lot of digging.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But here's my point. All of our interviews, everything that we do, I'm not an expert in the fields that these people are talking about. What do you do? What do I do? We dig deep. We come up with some good, hard-hitting questions, and then we have the interview. That's why people like coming on our interview shows, and I would encourage anybody out there, even if you're not Catholic, our shows are really good, and we're not just saying that. Our interviews are really good. We've gotten very, very, very good feedback from them. But my larger point is this. I don't need Joe Rogan to be an expert in anything. You know why I like Joe Rogan? Because if you're going to go on a show, he's going to ask you questions that are going to make you uncomfortable. I think that's one of the most important things that people who have a platform can do. They have the stones to ask people uncomfortable questions. That's why a lot of people aren't going on Joe Rogan's show. They wouldn't dare go on his show. I would, you would. He's not Catholic. He's not Christian. We'd go on a show. He could ask us tough questions. You think some of these libs, some of these lefties are going to go on Joe Rogan's show? Now, my larger point is this. When you have the larger platform, all I'm asking you to do, and I hope we are in a position one day to have millions of people watching us, okay? People are going to know us for asking hard questions. And if you want to come on our show, be prepared. That's what you got. That's what social media needs more of than anything else. I like people's opinions. I like Tucker Carlson. I like Candace Owens. I like a lot of people on, like Michael Jones. I know this is going to be controversial. I find Nick Fuentes very entertaining. I listen to everybody. I'm not just shutting off anybody. Okay. My point is, I like people who ask tough questions and really just get the truth out there. Just keep striving to get to the truth, as you alluded to earlier.
And what you mentioned too on some of those things, some of those people, some of their messages, maybe I don't completely buy, but they do bring up things that people don't bring up. And I'll tell you why, because they don't have advertising dollars that pressure them. And if they do have advertising, they pick it. They pick the advertising. It's not advertising that pressures them.
Right.
And that is the difference. That is the big difference.
Well, listen, if you and I had 100,000 people that listened to us and we had a website and we asked them to say, listen, contribute $1 a month. Okay. So we could pay our bills and grow the audience and all that fun stuff. Okay. If we had 100,000 people, why, if you want to be an advertiser on our show and sell your products and give us more money, great. But we're not going to listen to what you say.
Well,
I'll give you an example. Let me give you a quick example. You might find this interesting. Because this ties into, what we were talking about Carney, because we know what he's all about. I don't know if you saw Mike Knowles recently. According to Mike Knowles, that woman, Kim Davis in Kentucky, who lost a $100,000 lawsuit and also has to pay $260,000 in legal fees. Her lawyer is suing not to have to pay those things, and it's going to the Supreme Court. She was the one she was the person who refused to give the marriage license to homosexuals in Kentucky. And guess what? Her lawyer is very, very smart, because her lawyer is basing it on the fallacy of substantive due process. My point to you is this, is that this is the result of people out there boldly proclaiming the truth and not backing down and being assertive and being aggressive against lies. And let's pray that she wins, because Clarence Thomas has said, you get rid of substantive due process. You know what else goes the way of the dinosaur? Griswold versus Connecticut, the contraception decision. Okay, leaving it up to the states. So same with a lot of other things. Maybe pornography. All right, it opens the door to a lot of things. So I'll throw it over to you.
And mentioning that case, that's a strategy, because they know she doesn't have that money. And that's how cruel it is. Part of the lawfare that is waged against people like her, who's a clerk, who basically just acted in her conscience, is whether we win or lose, it doesn't matter. We're going to impoverish you, which is a tactic to discourage people like her to stand up for their beliefs. It's shameful, but they have no shame. That's not the angle you have to fight them on. You have to fight them with money, and you have to fight them in the court. Hopefully she wins. God, here,
if she wins,
with her in plain English,
Obergefell's getting overturned. If she wins that case at the Supreme Court, Obergefell is going to get overturned. And it most importantly is going to blow a hole in substantive due process, which is basically just a leftist legal fiction. Goes back to Dred Scott. Okay, Michael Knowles pointed that out too. Goes back to Dred Scott. Of course, they don't like it when you apply substantive due process to Dred Scott, but they like it when you apply it to contraception, abortion, gay marriage, and the rest of it. Let's hope that happens. Now, here's the other thing too, is that one of the things you can't do, at least without getting called out on it, is you can't lie like a rug. So we're going to play two clips for you. One is Robert Francis O'Rourke, also known as Beto, because he's such a disgusting, disgraziad person that he has to have people call him Beto because it makes him seem more Hispanic. There's nothing Hispanic about Robert Francis O'Rourke. Okay, so we're going to listen to his lies, and then we're gonna contrast that with J.D. Vance in an interview with Maria Bartiromo over the whole congressional redistricting thing. Let's get into it.
Ándale. It also means, as Mark was saying earlier, we don't await the punch thrown by these would-be fascists to land. We punch first, and we punch harder. We want California and New Jersey and Illinois and Maryland and every other state where the Democrats hold the governor's mansion, the assembly, and the state senate to redraw their congressional districts now, not wait for Texas to move first, to maximize Democratic Party advantage. Listen, you may say to yourself, well, those aren't the rules. There are no refs in this game. Fuck the rules. We are going to win whatever it takes. We're going to take this to them in every way that we can.
Everybody, even Democrats actually admit this, that the census in 2020 had a major statistical error. And what that meant is that you actually undercounted a few states that are Republican, like Florida and Ohio. You overcounted some blue states. And so what I understand, if you actually did the census anew right now, you would have 10 additional Republican seats and 9 fewer Democrat seats. And really what we're living with, Maria, is the consequence of 40 years of institutional control in the Democratic Party. These guys have fought very dirty for a very long time, and they haven't just won elections and enacted laws that we may not agree with. They have tried to rig the game for Democrats and against Republicans. And thankfully, under President Trump's leadership, you finally see some spine. You finally see some backbone in the Republican Party to fight back against these very aggressive Democratic dirty tricks. But the only way for us to do it is to actually go and do the hard work to reset the scales a little bit. What we want to do is redo the census, but importantly, we want to redistrict some of these red states, and we want to make the congressional apportionment fair in this country. Again, you cannot do it unless Republicans actually take some very decisive action in the months to come. We think they will, and we're obviously supporting them every step of the way.
But do you worry that as Republicans do that, the Democrat blue states are going to do the same thing, and then you'll have redistricting in California, New Jersey, and so on?
You know, Maria, there's just not a whole lot of juice left out of that lemon. The Democrats have already gone as far as they possibly can. Let me give you a crazy statistic. So I believe that it's in New Jersey, Illinois, New York, California, and there's one other Democrat state where you take those 5 states, you have a large number of Democrat representatives. But here's the crazy statistic. President Trump won 43% of those 5 states, and Democrats have something like 85% of the representatives out of those states. You cannot gerrymander these far left states anymore, and that's the whole point. We have unilaterally disarmed in the Republican Party. We have said to the Democrats, if you want to rig the game in your favor in blue states, go ahead. We're going to do nothing to fight back against it. That's crazy. It makes it harder for us to pass our agenda. It makes it harder for us to win elections. And most importantly, it gives Democrats this ability to run roughshod over the country without any pushback from the American people. The democratic system in this country is broken because who you vote for doesn't necessarily get reflected in who your representatives are. We're just trying to rebalance the scales and, frankly, push back against a very unfair system created by the Democrats.
Okay, now there's a few things there. Number one, again, social media, and I will credit Fox News, even though you and I both have our problems with them. You're not going to get that interview right there with anybody other than Maria Bartiromo or someone like her from Fox. See, Maria Bartiromo is very good. I'm going to give her a lot of credit. She's not a hack, okay? She'll ask hard questions, even though she might, let's say, politically agree with a J.D. Vance or a Donald Trump or somebody, okay? And she'll ask tough questions on both sides. Now, in that particular case, let's put it in context. Beto's a liar. Robert Francis O'Rourke is a liar, number one, because he's saying, well, California should do it. J.D. Vance just blew that up. They've already done it. Why do you think the Republicans are doing this? Why do you think Texas is doing it? He gave you the stat, and you could go by individual states. Joe, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think Massachusetts does not have one Republican member of the House of Representatives.
I don't believe, Joe, believe it or not, I don't know if New Hampshire does.
Well, no, New Hampshire tends to be a little bit. You might be thinking Vermont.
Because I saw something like some of these states have like 48% and have like no representation.
Right.
Like
right.
If you go through, like it is absolutely absurd. And to be truthful with you, I can't even believe Beto O'Rourke is still in the game.
He's trying to. I think.
Oh,
he's
I
just
know,
trying to
but
stay
like
relevant.
this is like they got to find some new blood. I mean, let's be real.
They're
Like,
not winning. Listen, unless they do rig elections, they're winning nothing as long as Beto O'Rourke is one of
that's
their
my
spokespeople.
point. He's tried and he lost. It's time to go away. But that reminded me of the Harry Reid statement. They're not. You see, every person who thinks that they're they're not for democracy.
Right.
They're not for you. They're
Right.
for an ideology and an agenda. They're for what Mark Carney was talking about.
That's
They're
right.
for what the UK and Ireland and France is talking about. Those countries are on the brink of a civil war because of it.
That's right.
One event that happens in France right now, all the nonsense that the people of France have got shoved down their throat, freezing their parliament, canceling the leading presidential candidate, banned her
Marine
for
Le-
life. I mean,
Marine Le Pen,
things I
yeah.
can't even believe.
Right.
That they're completely not a democracy.
And how do we let them get away? Here's where this is where Joe P gets angry. How do we let them get away on CNN and the rest of them? How do we let them get away with saying that somebody like Macron is not a threat to democracy and Marine Le Pen is? If the people want Marine Le Pen, then the people are going to vote for Marine Le Pen.
Joe, that's what a democracy is. But that should say everything. You don't have to agree with Marine Le Pen. You have to look at what's going on. And to be truthful with you, people are starting to see it. That's what scares the heck out of these people.
But they still control. But Joe, as just alluding back real quick to our last clip, but they still rig the game. And Texas, at least, is trying. I don't know. I think J.D. Vance is right. I think the statistic in New Jersey, I looked it up. I think New Jersey's between 35 and 40% Republican. And out of 12 congressional seats, the Republicans have 3. So it's not as egregious as Massachusetts. But nonetheless, Republicans are still underrepresented.
And here's another thing. The person that they should fear is Harmeet Dillon, because she's on it. If for people who don't know who she is, she's basically the civil rights attorney for the the
U.S. attorney for the Department of Justice.
Yeah, I mean, she's a serious attack dog, and she's smart as a whip. She's going to become the attorney general one day. She'll be the president of a law school one day too. I mean, she is sharp as a whip. And I'll tell you what, this is exactly why they feared Donald Trump being the president. He's got 3 more years. And to be truthful with you, I don't know if he's going to lose the midterms. I don't think so, the way it's looking.
Well, look at who their spokesman. You got tough guy Robert Francis O'Rourke talking about, well, we punch first and we punch harder. Listen, Beto, I don't want to get Nork on you, okay? Your problem, Beto, is that you've never been slapped in the teeth. Because getting punched in the face when you're a kid, like Joe and I did when we were kids, okay, you know what that does? That humbles you a little bit. That tells you can't just say anything you want. Beto's a spoiled rich kid. That's all he is. He's never taken any lumps in life. He's no regular man. He's not an everyman. He's got nothing to do with the Hispanic community. 0. Okay, I don't care how much he wants to say he does. They call him Beto because the maid call him Beto. All right, Joe, last time I checked, you and I don't have a maid or a butler. I'm just throwing that out there, okay? So Robert Francis O'Rourke wants to sound like a tough guy. The same with Adam Schiff and everybody else. They want to sound like tough. We're tough. Hakeem Jeffries, we're tough. There's nothing tough about these people. What they've done and what they were capable of doing, because they're cunning and shrewd, okay, is they were able to rig all these games. And what they don't like in Texas is say, okay, if the Republicans in Massachusetts, if you're going to disenfranchise them when it comes to congressional seats and they have no representation whatsoever in the House of Representatives, you're going to tell me you don't have one Republican district in Massachusetts because you redrew them all? Well, we're going to redraw them in Texas and see what happens. And maybe we're going to do that in Alabama, and maybe we're going to do that in Mississippi, and maybe we're going to do that all across the country. And like J.D. Vance said, that and a new census. And you know what happens? The Democrats not only will lose the midterms, they're going to be behind by a lot. And I mean a lot. Okay. So again, let them dig their own hole.
And to J.D. Vance's point, this is the first time anyone has done anything like this. George Bush didn't do anything like this. None of it. And that should be also a message to the institutional Democrats and Republicans, particularly the Republicans, who have not been on the side of the people
Nope.
at all.
At
And,
all.
you know, Trump is not perfect, but I'll be truthful with you. I would vote for him again. I'll say that publicly. He's not perfect, but at the same time, what are our options? What are the options? The
No.
options stink. And that's
Well-
the truth. And it's a start. He's the start. There's a lot of work to be done, but he's at least trying and he's chipping away. And that, in my book, is a good thing.
No, absolutely. And when I think about the title of this show, is it about safety or is it about control? People got to get it through your head. You know what it reminds me of, Joe? You're leftist. Remember Braveheart, Mel Gibson, right?
Sure.
So William Wallace, probably he's right up there in the top, my top 3 favorite characters ever to be on a movie screen. But he says it right before the battle when these Scottish soldiers, and they're basically the peasants, they're fighting for the nobility and they're walking away. So I'm not going to die for those guys, talking about the nobility. And William Wallace, Mel Gibson in his way, it was very rousing. And he says, okay, would you rather go home? Okay, you might live. You might be safe. Okay. Nobody's going to come banging down your door and let's say for drag you to prison or draw and quarter you or whatever the case might be. But you got a shot to actually live free. Okay. And for all their pissing and moaning about living free, the Democrats are only about control. They'll say, well, we're for abortion. Right. You're for baby killing. That's what you are. That's all about control too. All of it is about control, controlling people. Okay. And that's what I would say to people. Don't you want to fight back against these people just once? Just once. And I don't mean electing Donald Trump. I'm talking about real fundamental institutional change in the way the government works, which is going to transcend Donald Trump. It's going to go beyond him. You're going to need somebody after Donald Trump, okay, to carry that to a whole new level. But it reminds me of Braveheart. Yeah, you could go home and you could lay in your bed, but you're really not free. You're really not free.
Well, too many people trade in safety. They trade in freedom for safety. We saw that in the summer of 2020. They definitely did that. Many people, like I said, they're like, well, you know, I got a pretty comfortable life. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, you have kids. What about your kids?
Right.
Like, what do you think they're going to be left with? If everyone just did their part, your part could simply be informing yourself. Turn off the news and educate yourself. That could just be your part.
Right.
Because if everyone just did that, to be honest with you, we'd have a better country. And they rely on you not doing that.
Right.
Our schools churn out people who don't know how to critical think. Our news spoon feeds us talking points that they want you to hear. And frankly, everyone just marches along and they sell their freedom down the drain and their kids' future.
No, that's right. And stick around at the end. We're going to play a clip for you of Frank Zappa, of all people, back in 1981, talking about this very thing. Frank Zappa was actually a pretty smart guy. Never dug his music too much, but
Yeah, he was
Frank
a weird
Zappa,
dude,
but he wasn't a dumb guy. He was actually a very smart guy. And of course he was Italian. But anyway, so listen, you talk about control. You talk about having undue influence in the House of Representatives. This is one of the reasons why money and lobbying and giving money to candidates, this is one of the reasons why it's got to go. Listen to this clip.
I went on that APAC trip. I went on subsequent trips, and there is an actual downward pressure from the leadership and even the committee chairs. Like if you're on the Foreign Affairs Committee, if you're on the Armed Services Committee, if you're on the Intelligence Committee, there's like an expectation that you go there in some sort of like, I don't know, congressional Hajj. And I remember being at I'll never go back. I was at the King David Hotel, and I rolled back to my room unexpectedly when the rest of the group was still on some planned activity. And there was some dude in my room. I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing here? And he acted like he was associated with the hotel and taking an inventory, but had no clipboard. And so, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why they want members of Congress over there. And it is ideologically to steep them in this notion that the protection of Israel is of great import to people in America. But it's really not that important to voters. And that is becoming more clear on the right and left.
It is becoming more clear. It is. You talk about, and again, I'm going to say that it's been new media, social media that's been responsible for this. Okay. And I want to be clear about, like, when it comes to some of these groups who are being critical of Israel. You and I, and Matt Gaetz and others out there are, who's the other guy? Dave Smith. They're critical of all foreign wars, number one. And of course, against this knee jerk, just blindly, you have to support Israel or else you're anti-Semitic, you hate Jews, and all that kind of stuff. But I want to be clear. One thing that we have to be careful of, those of us who are respectfully critical of American foreign policy and want to see it change, and these wacko leftists, okay, who are anti-Israel, all right, we have nothing in common with them. I have nothing in common with these people that are looking to burn things down on college campuses.
Well, they also want to eliminate the Israeli state. I'm not for that. They deserve a nation, but they're not entitled to wipe a people off the face of the earth. That's exactly what they're accusing the Palestinian people of doing. They're doing that right now. Right. If you do some research and you listen to a lot of voices and there's a lot of pictures, many people have died unjustly, and they're not Hamas. They're regular people. Their land has been taken. They've been bulldozed and bullied. And I'm not for that. And I'm not for the government of Israel. I am not. I am not for Netanyahu at all. And to be honest with you, I'm not for any lobby. Zero. The Israeli lobby, why we see many times, and it's not just the Israeli lobby, it's the pharmaceutical lobby, it's the military-industrial complex, why we see things, sometimes people will say to themselves, why are they doing that? No one's for it. Because it's not about you. You see, this is what people don't understand. It's not about you. Money moves the wheel. And all of these lobbies influence our representatives. Matt Gaetz has given us an example of just one lobby. And for starters, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer and I don't know all the ins and outs of how something gets classified a foreign lobby versus just a normal business lobby. The Israeli lobby is not classified as a foreign lobby. They get around it by basically people who are unaffiliated loosely with the nation, and they classify it as just like, say, like a regular super PAC type of thing, legally speaking, how it's basically papered and filed. They're representing the interests of a nation that is not our nation. And that is why sometimes we're in completely lockstep. We have the same interests, but sometimes we don't have the same interests. But we always go along. Why? Because of the lobby. And I'm against all lobbies. I'm particularly against that lobby. Because to be honest with you, it's bringing us nothing but trouble. And at the end of the day, you're our friends. We'll act and back you when it's in our interest to do so. But when it's not, we're staying out of it. We're agnostic because that's what the American people want. We want America first. If you want American money, then you should become the 51st state. Too bad. If that's what you want, if we back your entire government, financially speaking, then you should become a state. If you don't want that, and it clearly you don't, then we're not going to do it.
Well, here's
we'll
my
only
thing.
back you when it's in our interest, and when it's not in our interest, we're not going to. And that should go with everything.
Everybody. Marco Rubio, who is really whose stock has risen on the Joe Pasillo.
I agree. He's done a great job.
Okay. He told them flat out. He told that idiot, not Murphy, the other guy who had the margarita with the MS-13 gang member down in El Salvador, or wherever it was.
The dude from Connecticut?
Yeah, what's his name?
I
forgot.
don't remember his name. I think he's from Connecticut.
He said, I regret voting for you. And Rubio said, I must be doing a good job if you regret voting for me. But Rubio made a very good point. He says, foreign aid is not a gift. We don't just give money out to whoever wants it. Foreign aid has what he was saying. I'm paraphrasing. Foreign aid has strings attached. And the main string is the money we give you has to be in the interest of the American
That's right.
people.
And that doesn't
Okay?
that doesn't make us a bad people.
No, it
Nationalists,
means,
call you what.
and the thing is, and there is a difference. There is a moral difference because the left has tried to use foreign aid against countries that don't want gay marriage or don't want abortion. Countries like Hungary and Poland, okay? Austria, my understanding, has become, there's a Catholic resurgence in Austria. They don't want these Western American values like abortion, and Hillary Clinton threatened to take their money away. I say this, abortion and all that other stuff, none of that is in America's interest. Whether you're pro-abortion or not, none of that has anything to do with foreign aid, okay? Foreign aid should be based on, I give you money, what are we getting for it? That's it, okay? And if we're getting nothing, like we've gotten nothing from Russia, Ukraine, like we've gotten nothing from the conflict with Israel in the Middle East and Gaza, we're getting nothing from that. All foreign, and here's my larger point, I'll throw it over to you. I used to wonder, whether I agreed or not, I don't remember, where people like Springsteen and people like that would say, why are we giving all this money to foreign countries when you have people in America who are starving and who are in need of help? I used to think that was just a leftist argument, and to a degree it is. But I do in my heart fundamentally agree with that. You go look at one of our friends, Michael Grogan, and go look at the neighborhood he lives in Kensington, all right, in Philadelphia, in that neighborhood, and you see the human waste. That's what it is. I'm not judging them. I'm saying that's what it is. Waste of lives because of fentanyl and all the other drugs on the street. You walk down the street and you're going to tell me that all you smart people in Washington can't take some of that money or all of that money that you gave to the Ukraine and come up with some sort of humane way to help these people who are suffering, self-imposed.
Because they don't matter. And
they
that's
don't
what people,
matter.
That
they
is
don't.
what people
That's
have
right.
to get through their head. Same with Western North Carolina. Same with Palestine, Ohio. They don't matter, particularly states or sections of states that don't vote for them. You don't matter. It's the agenda that matters. And that's what people have to rally behind. They have to basically get rid. And that's the message to people like that. Stop going along to get along, because what they do is they throw you a little carrot, i.e., you can kill your baby. I'm going to allow you to abort your child. So vote for me. And now I'm going to take away your freedom. You get to do that. You get to cause immeasurable psychological harm to yourself, because that's exactly what abortion does to women. Women who have abortions have a lot of problems. This is not my opinion. Do your research. It's not pro-woman. It destroys women. It destroys them.
Whether they admit it or not.
And that's a fact. That is not my opinion. Do your research. High alcoholism rates, high suicide rates, high drug rates, high divorce rates, all as a result of abortion.
Well, you can't kill your kid, Joe, and not suffer guilt from it.
But what it is this. They're playing on your behavior. They know how people live. They know how they live outside of marriage. They know how they live within marriage. Right. And that is what it is. They understand what makes you itch. So they give it to you. You give them your vote, and then they rob you of your freedom. You see what, like I said, what happened in Western North Carolina, in Palestine. Why is it a country this rich has such devastation in the middle of America? People don't have jobs. It's a wasteland. It's a wasteland. There is no reason for that. There is zero. Why does Newark exist? Why does East St. Louis exist? Why does parts of Memphis exist? Why does Camden exist? A country this rich. You're going to tell me, and we're going to talk about it soon, what happened in Washington. They can't do the same thing in those areas. Easily clean it up. It would take very little effort. They don't care about you. And they haven't cared about you for decades. Decades.
No, you listen, when your whole raison d'etre is political power, then you want all those poor black kids in the inner city killing each other.
Decades of it.
You want that civil unrest. How do you even look into a camera that Lori Lightfoot, when she was the mayor of Chicago, she was a disaster. Okay. This other guy, I forgot his name, Byron Johnson or something like that. He's the new mayor of Chicago. They're all political hacks. They're all part of the black liberal establishment machine. Okay. We know that. Okay. How do you blame Whitey? That's what they do. They blame white people. They blame cops. Okay. They blame the white supremacy when a young black kid shoots another black kid over drugs, or some sort of a territorial dispute, or maybe because he looked at his girlfriend's ass, okay, and he didn't like it and he shot the kid, and you want to blame everybody else. This is what they want. I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it again here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, okay, especially when it comes to black people in America, all right? The leftists have convinced you that it's A-okay and it's in your community's best interest to bring less black babies in the world via abortion, kill more, because as you've said before, and I've said at the show,
it's eugenics, Joe.
Of course it is. There's more black babies that are killed in the womb in New York City than are actually born. That's a statistical fact. How is it that Jessica Tarloff can go in Fox News and call anti-abortion legislation racist? I want more black babies born, Jessica. You want more dead black babies, but yet I'm the racist, and somehow you're the liberator of
because
black
to be
women.
honest with you, that just feeds into their worldview. That's the sad thing. And many of those women have had abortions, and they're wounded women. That's the truth. The ones who are barking the loudest are the most wounded. And instead of seeking reconciliation, admitting what they did and they know many of them deep down in their hearts know. That's why women who have abortions have issues. This is not my opinion again. Look at the data. But people don't want to change, Joe. That means I have to admit I was wrong. That means I have to change my behavior. So instead, they compartmentalize their behavior and they fight ever harder. And in the meantime, you're wiping out a generation. In the meantime, you're wounding your daughters. Your daughters. Right. You're basically leading generation upon generation to be slaughtered in America. And it's been going on for years.
That's right.
And they do that because they play on your itch.
Well, listen. That's why we have to continue to do what we're doing and point out their lies, point out their hypocrisies, quite frankly, point out their evil. So now you mentioned about, the 51st state. You want foreign aid? Why don't you become a 51st state? I don't know what Donald Trump's thinking there, Joe Rossinello. Maybe Gaza is going to become the 51st state, maybe even before Alberta. We'll see, but I got to play this.
The land. Some people say this is ethnic cleansing. You won't be able to force them to leave the land.
We're moving them to a beautiful location where they have new homes, where they can live safely, where they'll have doctors and medical and all of those things. And I think it's going to be great. Yeah, any questions?
You said before that the U.S. would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
And Mr. President, take it under what authority? It is sovereign territory.
Under the U.S. authority.
Denmark, France, Greece, and Slovenia called for today's urgent meeting of the Security Council on the situation in Gaza. We condemn the government of Israel's decision to further expand its military operations in Gaza. This plan risks violating international humanitarian law. We call on Israel to urgently reverse this decision and not to implement it. And we reiterate that any attempts at annexation or of settlement extension violate international law. expanding military operations will only endanger the lives of all civilians in Gaza, including the remaining hostages, and result in further unnecessary suffering. Justice.
Joe, there's only so much of the UN that my stomach can take, and I ate a little bit before we came on the show, and I really don't want to have to check out to go and go find the barf bag. Here's one thing this one I'm throwing right over to you. 2 quick points. One is, what's left in Gaza? If the United States could go in there, not as we would, let's say, just go in there, help clean the place up, help these poor people who have been decimated, and I don't know, build a wall. I don't know, whatever he's got in mind. I'm open-minded to it. And the other thing that I would demand from the America First / MAGA movement, we need to withdraw from the United Nations. That little clip you just saw is meaningless. They are a meaningless organization.
What I would say is it's a huge mistake for Trump to say that and to take that position.
Okay.
If you ask me, Palestine deserves a state, and so does Israel. It should be a 2-state solution. We should distance ourselves from that. And frankly, I would withhold aid. That's what I would do. I would say this is one of those situations, Israel, that is not in America's interest. It's not in our interest for you to basically annihilate a people. They're not all Hamas. And as a result of a tragedy, and October 7th was a tragedy, they have overstepped their bounds. They simply have. Now, that doesn't mean that people should act out against Jewish people. That doesn't mean people should hate Israel, but I have every right to not agree with their foreign policy, and I don't. And if I say that we are for America first, that is not an America first issue. I want nothing to do with that. We're on the wrong side of history. We're on the wrong side of history. Donald Trump should know that. And if you ask me, the only reason why he's doing that is because of the lobby.
But the lobby, Joe, let's remember something. They don't operate in a vacuum. They have support. We've said this before here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. They have support on the right in America of the Christian Zionists.
Well, that's another problem.
That's a big problem.
That's another.
Trump's not going against his base, Joe.
Well, no. That's another twisted theological worldview. It's absolutely twisted. Somehow God is going to rapture you up, as in you don't get to suffer. Jesus suffered. He's going to rapture you up. And everybody else has to suffer but you. Wrong. That's not how it works. It's a heresy. Right. It's a proclaimed heresy. It was made up in the 19th century, and as a result, the Catholic Church declared it a heresy.
Right.
It has no foundation in theology, biblical theology from the beginning. Zero.
And this is where the Catholic Church has to step up when it comes to this, because this involves the well-being of our nation, not just of souls, but the well-being of our nation, where the church has to say loudly. Now, people in the church, people like us and many, many other Catholic commentators, they talk about this dispensationalism, this Christian Zionism, where you have to try to.
Well, they could have their own nation. I have no problem with that.
But that's. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I have no problem with Israel wanting their own nation. And I respect the Zionists' desire to have their own place. You just can't bulldoze other people. Like, you have to be fair. And fair is fair. But ultimately, as far as like people like Mike Huckabee and people like Ted Cruz, the whole American evangelical set, your theology is off. And to be truthful with you, if you did a little research, you're going to find that it doesn't go too far back. I think it's like 1830, these ideas really got cemented. Christ was, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not sound theology at all.
John MacArthur, who died recently, John MacArthur said, no, this was well before Darby. No, it actually wasn't, Mr. MacArthur. Okay. This is another thing that you and I don't get into too much on the podcast. This is the strain of anti-Catholicism, particularly amongst American Christians. They can't look at some of the people who so blindly support Israel. I won't mention names, okay? I don't want to disparage anybody, but look at some high-profile apostasy, all right, leaving the Catholic Church and going over to the evangelicals. And many times when you look at it, especially with high-profile people, what is it all about? They don't agree with the church on contraception. They might agree with the church on abortion.
No, they don't even believe that the body of Christ is Jesus when he says it himself.
I'm saying even aside from the theology, you're 1,000% right. But you look at like, it's people who want to get divorced. I can't stay Catholic if I want to get divorced, but I want to be a Christian and I want to be able to call myself a Christian. Well, what do? Go over to the evangelicals. You're once saved, always saved. Just because Jesus said you can't divorce your spouse doesn't mean you can. Of course you can, because we're going to reinterpret what Jesus said when he called you an adulterer if you get a divorce and marry another person. Okay, they don't want to be Catholic. They don't. They cling to all these heresies. Mainly, it has to do with things like contraception and divorce. To be quite honest,
that's a driving reason why people leave the church. But if they did a little research as far as where these ideas like the rapture and where this idea that the temple has to be rebuilt before Jesus comes back, says who?
Right.
Says who?
Right.
Some guy in 1830. I mean, like says who?
Exactly.
And this is my point. Yeah. Like people want to hear what their itchy ears want to hear. It's bad theology, and they're willing. This is the sad part. There are many innocent people suffering as a result. They're willing to look past it.
Right.
Because of this idea that Israel must establish its kingdom and the temple has to be rebuilt before Jesus Christ returns. Says who?
Well, I think the idea, too, is that the temple has to be rebuilt in order for the Antichrist.
The temple has been rebuilt in Christ.
The Catholic Church.
In Jesus Christ.
Right.
This is the whole thing. Like you're missing the theology. You missed it.
Right.
Like you missed the ball. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
right. And Joe, they don't listen, and they don't. I posted the other day on X. I like Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum, and basically he was talking of this same line, this evangelical American Christian line, and I replied. It got a few hundred people to look at it or whatever. I wasn't trying to be a jerk, but what I replied was, I said, the Catholic Church is the new Israel and Rome is the new Jerusalem. I don't care what wishy-washy bishops don't want us to say that. They can never drop the hammer on Joe and Joe for saying that because that's rock solid Catholic teaching. No bishop could say what I just said was wrong. They could dress it up. Oh, it's very insensitive. I don't care about being sensitive. I care about saving souls. That's part of one of the reasons why we do things. The Israel ceased to exist with the destruction of the Second Temple. The priest, the temple, and the sacrifice all are in the Catholic Church. The sacrifice of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, the temple is the risen body and the body of Christ, the Catholic Church, okay, and the priest, okay. That's all in. That was Old Testament Judaism that was fulfilled in Jesus Christ and carries over into the church he established on the Rock of Peter. This idea, you're right. If Israel has borders and wants to defend itself and they're going to be a friend to the world and a friend to the United States and they're going to do things the right way, then I would say to you, we're going to judge each case accordingly. And when they're in need of help and they're not in the wrong, okay, then we're going to go in there and help them. But this idea that we're going to usher in mankind is actually going to usher in the second coming of Christ.
That's my point. It's so absurd. It's so absurd. It and to be honest with you, it's not grounded in good theology. No. Do some research. This should be an opportunity for you to question, is what I believe right? Let me look into where it started. Let's dig deeper. Let's start looking back.
Yeah.
Christianity's been around for 2,000 years. It didn't start in the 1600s with the Reformation. It didn't. Christianity existed before the Bible for 400 years.
Well, I will give you an example, and you are exactly right. And I'll give you an example, and then we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about Washington, D.C. I think it's important that Joe and I get into that a little bit. There's very good fruit coming from people of goodwill who are non-Catholic Christians, and Catholics, strong Catholics online that are having good, energetic, in-depth, take off the glove debates on these things. And you know what? They might not convince each other. Okay. I don't think that, let's say, for argument's sake, any of the Protestant pastors or apologists, I don't think they're going to win over their Catholic counterpart. But the people in the audience see these arguments, and I think it's important. And they're good arguments. They're good debates. They talk about the papacy, and you know what you wind up getting? You wind up getting some high-profile conversions, not because we care if they get clicks or not, but if you got a higher platform, a larger platform, good for you. Use it for the greater glory of God. Cameron Bertuzzi, perfect example. Cameron Bertuzzi is a Calvinist. I believe he was a Calvinist, evangelical Christian, right? And the final pitch, after a lot of back and forth online, the final pitch came from Scott Hahn, where Cameron said, my biggest obstacle coming into the church is the papacy. Scott Hahn had an intelligent, reasonable conversation with him online. I believe it was with Matt Fradd, okay? And he said, this is the reason. He laid it out from Cameron Bertuzzi became a Catholic. And you want to know what? Don't care what anybody says. One of the biggest, if not the biggest solution to our problems is that Christianity is not unified, and Christianity cannot be unified unless we're unified on doctrine. And the only place you could be unified on doctrine is in the Catholic Church. That's it. I don't care what anybody says. Joe, I'll give you the final word on that.
Ultimately, like I said, people, the conversations are going on now. They're out there. Educate yourself. Question some of the beliefs. We cannot compartmentalize the slaughter of innocent life. No. Sorry. And Jesus would not before that. Jesus does not need anything for him to come back. He doesn't need the temple to be rebuilt. He doesn't need Israel to be established as a kingdom on earth before. Jesus could come back now. He can come back in 1,000 years. He can come back tomorrow. He can come back in a week from now because he's Jesus. We don't determine that. We can't predict it. And he even said it in the scripture. No one knows the day or the hour except the Father. So right. It is an absurd idea. And at the end of the day, there are innocent people who are getting bullied, pushed around. Their land is being taken, and it's wrong, and America should have nothing to do with it.
Well, amen, brother. So now let's talk about D.C. Now, Trump said Gaza is war-torn. D.C. is war-torn. You and I have a nephew through marriage who lives in D.C., okay? We go down and visit him, okay? Now, he's law enforcement, or he's with federal government. He was Afghanistan and Iraq war veteran, okay? And he works in the government. I'm not going to say where. I don't want to out him. I don't want to dox him, okay? Joe, he doesn't live in a great neighborhood. He lives in D.C., okay? And he doesn't live in a great neighborhood. And he's black, okay? And every time we drive through there to go and see him, okay, because we're very close, the bottom line is we drive through there and I say, how is Washington, D.C.? How does Washington, D.C. look like this? How is it that the nation's capital looks like this? So let me play a clip and then we'll talk about it.
Americans, we don't believe it's legal to use the American military against American citizens on American soil. I'm not a lawyer, and but I think that's a fairly widely held fact.
30 days enough to make an impact in your second home?
It's a start. Brian, here's what I see. Here's what I think most Americans see. I see a proud American city, our nation's capital, in trouble. It has a crime problem. And if you don't believe me, then carry your happy ass down to 8th Street or Columbia Heights or the Navy Yard or Brentwood, 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night and walk around alone and see what happens. I see a dysfunctional local government that enables that crime. A dysfunctional local government that just a few years ago cut its police budget by 15%. A dysfunctional local government that believes that cops are a bigger problem than criminals. And then I see a president of the United States who says, well, maybe I can help. How about if I send in 800 experienced, professional, well-trained federal law enforcement officials to help our local cops fight crime? And finally, I see world-beating vacuity and stupidity. I see movie stars and pop singers who partied with Harvey Weinstein. I see the tofu mob with their NPR tote bags and their organic broccoli. And I see many of my Democratic friends who, in response to said president, foam at the mouth and have their 19th nervous breakdown. And instead of thanking the president or saying, good idea, they accuse him of undermining democracy.
Yeah.
If there was a technology available, okay, that could keep one human being alive forever, it would be John Kennedy. Because number one, he speaks very plainly. He's very, very smart.
Oh, yes.
Very, very smart guy. But see, he knows how to deliver the package. He knows how to deliver the punch.
Oh, dude, he's a master.
Does it by disarming them. He gets up there in the Senate and he says, well, I know that Senator Durbin's my friend. I know in my heart John Kennedy can't stand Dick Durbin. He can't stand White House. He can White House, whatever. He can't stand Klobuchar. But you know what? He disarms them. Now, to the point about D.C. Okay, first of all, let the courts figure it out, Mayor Bowser. Let the courts figure it out. Because guess what? The United States military went into Los Angeles in the 90s, and they put down that riot. And as Pat Buchanan said in his famous speech at the Republican National Convention, they went there, M16s at the ready. No, you don't have the right to riot in the street. And if local law enforcement and the local government is not doing anything about it, the federal government has every right to come in and keep the peace. If you don't believe me, if you think I'm wrong, let's see what the courts say. But at the end of the day, they're quaking in their boots. Because if Trump is allowed to do this, Joe, in D.C. and says, you know what? The police chief in New York City gave me a call. He says, you know what? The mayor's not letting me do it, especially if Mondani becomes mayor. The police department in New York is going to get gutted, and New York is going to become even more the wild, wild west. But he turns around and says, I got a call from the police chief. The police chief says the mayor's basically hamstrung him, reduced their budget, telling them they can't fight crime. Well, guess what? That's a major American city. I'm the president of the United States. If the mayor of New York City is not going to do it, I'm going to send in a couple thousand National Guard troops, and we're going to restore order. Last time I checked, Joe, and I'm going to throw it over to you, that's part of the job description of the president is to maintain order. Am I wrong?
Joe, this is not even a political issue. It's common sense. The only people who are suffering are regular people. Not everyone who lives in those neighborhoods are criminals. In fact, most of them are just law-abiding people who are trying to live. Why should they suffer because of a bad ideology? They shouldn't. And ultimately, I'll use the example of the summer of 2020. There is no way that I would have allowed Minneapolis, St. Paul to burn. I would have brought in the National Guard, and if anyone in that city, i.e. any elected official that got in my way, I would have them arrested. Your first priority is to protect people. And if you're willing to turn the other cheek, you're willing to not prosecute crime, I am sorry, the government has every right to do that. And if I lived in one of those neighborhoods, I would thank those officers. If I was a poor like husband and father trying to raise a family, and I paid my taxes and I paid my bills, and now you're keeping me and my family safe, I would thank you. There is no reason why any city in America, a country like this with all its wealth and all its resources, should allow criminals to keep law-abiding citizens hostage. And any ideology that says otherwise, I'm sorry, that doesn't make you a fascist. How about this? You do your job. You're not doing your job, so I'm going to do mine from the
That's right.
federal level, and I have no problem with it. And I will bet you the rank and file person that lives in those neighborhoods who basically pay their bills, who are law abiding, are happy about it.
That's right. They're happy about it. You get these blue collar black guys. Okay, let's say for argument's sake in Brooklyn and in Queens. Okay, up in the Bronx, they got young kids, young boys. Let's say teenage boys. You think these guys don't want the cops out there on the street? You think that these guys happen to agree with Spike Lee that they should demonize all the
He doesn't
police?
live there.
He doesn't live there, is right. All right, he gets the private entrance. Remember the scandal a few years? He gets the private entrance to the Knick game. Spike Lee doesn't live like a regular black man. Okay, he's rich. I think Danny Aiello one time during Do the Right Thing. Danny Aiello was in an interview with him and somebody else, and Spike Lee was going on about this stuff. And Danny Aiello took offense. He told him straight to his face, "You're a limousine liberal. What are you talking about?" I love Danny Aiello, but he told him straight up, "You're a limousine liberal." That's what Spike Lee is. He has nothing in common with that guy who's a truck driver, construction worker, garbage man, blue collar guy. He's got a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid. Because of the way New York works, can't send his kid to private school because the government won't give him a voucher. So he's got to send his boys down to the local public school, which is another disaster, okay? And he's got to worry that his kid's going to get shot. And you're going to tell me that that's somehow a just system? Again, I don't care if the guy was racist or he punched Michael Corleone in the face. If I'm a black guy and I have sons and I live in New York, I want McCluskey protecting my kids on the way to school.
It's common sense, and it's not even a political issue.
What's
It's
that?
not. Safety is not a political issue.
But they make it a political issue.
No, I know, and that's where people should push back. Any person that has a problem, he's not over. Sorry. When people are dying, Chicago should have been taken over years ago. The amount of people that die, I want people to do a little research. Research any given weekend, especially a holiday weekend like Memorial Day or 4th of July weekend. How many people get shot and how many people die in Chicago? You won't believe the numbers. We used to cover that years ago when we did a show. We took it through a different angle. Look at that up. It's a disgrace. Right. Why should a family who has children lose a child because of a stray bullet? Because you won't do your job? Because your ideology is completely ridiculous? Sorry, that's ridiculous. And here's the deal. If you're not keeping people safe, it's like what happened in New York City with Alvin Bragg. He should have been arrested.
Yeah,
he's not prosecuting crime. Arrest him. And here's the deal. And this is what Barack Obama did. And this is what Trump should do. Same thing. We're going to mirror what Barack Obama did. I'm going to do it. Take me to court. I have good lawyers. I hope you do.
That's right.
Let's go. And that's exactly how you roll. You basically say, I don't care. I'm doing it. Take me to court. I got good lawyers, and I'm going to charge you, Alvin Bragg, for basically treason. Because you're deliberately not upholding your office. You're putting lives at stake.
And you said it publicly. That's
my point. So I hope you have a good lawyer because I got good lawyers.
And what happened in Florida when one of the local district attorneys, I forgot which law in Florida he wasn't going to enforce, DeSantis fired him.
That's exactly right. And that's like the hard knuckle, that's the type of stuff we need. You have to, just like Beto O'Rourke just said, there are no rules. Well, guess what? You want to start playing hardball where you put radical people in the courts, in these district attorney positions, these mayors who are radical that destroy. Look at California. It's a wasteland that should never have been allowed, ever. Ever. When you destroy things, at the end of the day, the federal government should have every right to step in. Sorry, too bad, take me to court.
And
That's
like
it.
you said, You get the lawyers now the lawyers are going to come up with the legal argument, but you get the lawyers to basically go up in front of a judge and say, Your Honor, we have to do this because these people who are elected, who took an oath, who have a responsibility and a duty, they are negligent. They're negligent.
And
they're not doing their job.
That's right. And here's the deal. I hope you have a good lawyer because I can prove it. And that's the thing. All you have to do is open your eyes. Take a walk down streets in Newark, wasteland. Why should generation upon generation? It's not my kid, because that's what's said in the homes of these people. I don't care about these people.
Right.
Disgrace.
It's an
absolute disgrace.
It's an absolute disgrace. I went back to Newark 2 weeks ago. My cousin passed away. So I went back to Newark, and the Uber driver, don't ask me why. I thought he would take like Route 78 or 280. He ended up going through downtown Newark and getting to Route 280 that way. So I got to see some of near the old neighborhood, okay, so to speak, before we got on 280. Joe, it's no different than when we were kids. In fact, I would argue that it's probably worse. In other words, it's no different than it was just a few years removed from the Newark riots. Nobody's going in there and helping these people.
That's been 50 years, Joe.
What?
Newark has 50 years. It's been a wasteland.
And it was a great city.
And that's my point.
City.
All the damage that was done as a result of the summer of 2020, that's not going to get fixed. I read an article a while ago about, it was a preacher, like a Baptist preacher in one of the neighborhoods in South Side of Chicago. He's like, you put me back decades, all the work that I did in this neighborhood in terms of bringing it up and bringing people out of poverty. You put me back decades because businesses leave. They don't come back. It is a wasteland for decades. And the politicians who basically pulled the strings for that to happen, not only don't they care in terms of what's going on now, they don't live there.
No.
And they never will live there. They'll give you some lip service, but ultimately it's your kid that has to go to a bad school. It's your wife that could get raped when she walks down the street because she doesn't have a car. The bus system stinks, and she's got to walk blocks with a what's it called? A shopping cart, getting mugged. That's the result of this nonsense.
That's right.
And nobody cares. It's been going on for too long. And if you're not going to fix it, the government is, and I'm all for it. Good for them.
Right.
And if you don't like it, take me to court.
You know, the shame of it is we're going to leave you with a clip from Frank Zappa. Don't go anywhere. It's only like a minute or two long. The shame of it is, Joe, just to put a final point on Newark. My father drove a cab. The Pasillos in Newark, and my father's uncles on the Delvecchios, a lot of them had cabs. They were all over the city of Newark because a lot of them either owned a cab, drove a cab. My family was all Newark taxis. Okay, my father was very knowledgeable about all the workings of Newark, going back to when he was a kid at Barringer. Your father went to Barringer back in 1953, 1954. My father used to tell me all the time, he goes, the difference between before the riots and after the riots. After the riots, and nobody did anything to help this city. Before the riots, okay, everybody was working. It did not matter if you were a Jew. And there was a big Jewish community in Newark.
Weequahic.
Weequahic. Didn't matter if you were German. Didn't matter if you were Irish. Didn't matter if you were Italian. Didn't matter if you were black. You were working. You worked at the airport. You worked down at Port Newark. You worked in the breweries. You worked in manufacturing. They chased it all away. This is where it gets personal. The George Soroses of the world and all their underlings that they fund, like Alvin Bragg and all these radicals, this guy Mamdani, they're all actors. They're all put up, and they're all paid. They're all paid. They get paid a lot more money than you and I, Joe. And they go in there because their job is to destroy. That's why Newark they've been talking about a renaissance since my birthday in October of 1967, which was right after the riots, the summer of the riots, okay? From the time I was a little kid, I heard about Newark Renaissance. They're never going to do it because the job that these people have, Ross Baraka, who's Amiri Baraka, who was a radical leftist revolutionary who fueled a lot of the riots, by the way, That's his son, Ross Baraka. He ain't going to do anything for those people. Black,
And
Hispanic,
he
or
walks away
otherwise.
rich. He walks away from it all a multimillionaire, as they all do. And that's my point. Why should that happen? Good for Trump. He's actually doing something. And I'll be honest with you, he should go into LA. He should go into New York, and he should go into Chicago. And if you don't like it, then clean up the city. But if you don't clean it up, he should do it. And if you don't like that, take him to court. I hope you have a good lawyer, because to be honest with you, you're not doing your job.
That's right, Joe Rossinello. And Beto O'Rourke will find out if Trump does that, who punches harder, him or Donald Trump, okay? So we're going to leave it there. I got a clip for you. We have a clip for you from Frank Zappa. We got a couple of shares already. Rick Barrett, good friend of the show. We used to work on the same station with Rick on the Crusade channel back in the day. Share the video. Rick's a big supporter of the show. We always appreciate that, Rick. Thank you. All of you guys in our chat room, Antonella, Zach, Robert, all of you, just Mary, a lot of you, KC Royals fan, all, you support us every week. You support us all the time. So help us out. Like, subscribe, share. Do all that fun stuff. Remember, Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time is when we go live, unless something happens, and then generally we'll move it to Sunday. But thank God that doesn't happen too often. Going to leave you with a clip from Frank Zappa, speaking a lot of truth back in 1981. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you next week.
To be a functional ignoramus. American schools do not equip you to deal with things like logic. They don't give you the criteria by which to judge between good and bad in any medium or format. And they prepare you to be a usable victim for a military-industrial complex that needs manpower. As long as you're just smart enough to do a job and just dumb enough to swallow what they feed you, you're going to be all right. But if you go beyond that, you're going to have these grave doubts that give you stomach problems, headaches, make you want to go out and do something else. So I believe that schools mechanically and very specifically try and breed out any hint of creative thought in the kids that are coming up.
So what's the alternative?